Hello again. This is my second video and my name is Remo. I'm a therapist, educator and a transpersonal psychologist. Welcome to my channel. Over here we talk about psychology, spirituality, self-actualization, creativity and productivity. And with this video I want to basically jump right in into the kind of videos I want to make, into a more kind of explanatory, a little bit of an academic, but also very practical and pragmatic kind of content. So as long as I can remember thinking and reading, I have been holding lectures in my head, and I finally realized that my cup is too filled. I need to actually start emptying it. I need to start sharing what I've discovered, what has helped me on my journey. Today I'm gonna share my model of psyche and soul, more on the side of psyche, and I will share later how I kind of distinguish them. So it's a bit of psychology and a bit of spirituality, and that's how I like these things. That's how I view the world and myself. So let's jump straight into it. So I'm gonna use a blackboard for it, and I will let you know what I think about psyche. So here's a little kind of a hierarchy, but why I use hierarchy, it's just to kind of explain what rests on what and what kind of order there is to growth and progress, and how we basically construct ourselves. And that's kind of what I mean by psyche. It's our identity, our state of being, how we view ourselves. Also, part of it is the stories we tell ourselves, and the dreams we have, the fears and all of it. But I guess the easiest way to put it is anima, and that means what makes us move, that which animates us, that what makes us act. So that's what this model will be about: psyche, anima, the thing which makes us move and act, and kind of a identity and self. So not just ego, and I'll explain about more on the blackboard. So let's draw a triangle, kind of a hierarchy. So there's two kind of two levels to it, and I will explain the top part first and then the bottom part. So the top kind of triangle, it depicts psychospiritual maturity. It's a level that we kind of aspire to, although we have an amount of it, no matter where we are. It's just it's part of our being, but we don't basically start out there, psychologically speaking. So, and this psychospiritual maturity, what it consists of for me is, in the top there's meaning, and meaning can have its own lectures, its own series. I can't go too deep into it, but I'll explain a little bit in a moment. Then the bottom points is what I call autonomy and agency. These are kind of, I would say, the higher values for psychological development, what we aspire towards. And in the middle, I would also let's put lifestyle over here, and in parentheses I'll also write freedom. Yeah, so this is basically what we aspire to. We aspire to, these are kind of a intrinsic motivator besides just self-preservation and then survival. When we have survival covered, this is what we want to build. We want autonomy, we want agency, we want our lifestyle and freedom to choose. And when we do have this freedom, not for all of us, but I think for many, quite naturally arises the question of what do you do with this freedom? And for some it's more important, for others it's less. But for me, its meaning is kind of a cardinal value, and it goes even into religion, into kind of Western mindset versus Eastern mindset. So for me, I would put meaning at the top, but maybe for some other people, freedom would be there instead of meaning. Whether you're maybe an atheist or a Buddhist or things like that. So now I'll explain what agency and autonomy mean. And, this isn't out of a textbook. This is what I've put together myself. So maybe you might not agree, but this is how I view this. So autonomy basically for me is the resources that give us or enable agency. Yeah. And by resources, I don't mean an amount of money. By resources, I mean inner. That's basically skills that you have developed, maybe professional skills, but also, survival skills, the ability to take care of yourself and your needs, and then maybe other people as well. Build you up. Competencies and of course what I talked about in the last video, economic, emotional and spiritual freedom. These I view as inner, resources, and you build them up. Yeah. Now, agency is what you do with those resources. You could be super competent, but you could be kind of a cog in the machine. Maybe you are super competent, but you are still kind of working for someone else, and that's fine if that's what you choose. Maybe you put your agency elsewhere in your life, whatever your plan is, but that's kind of an example. So agency for me is your vision, for life overall, your mission, basically what inform agency, your values and principles. Dreams, interests, and calling. Maybe you have one, maybe you don't. That's fine too, but that's how I view it. And these, I would say, inform your action, behavior, and also perception. Yeah, I won't go too deep into perception this time, but that's a really cool, interesting, important topic as well. So we basically got the top layer of psyche down. So that's kind of the psychospiritual maturity that we aspire to. I don't think we start there, and there are very important steps to get there. But even if we don't have a whole lot of agency and autonomy and meaning in our lives, there's still a little bit of it. Even by surviving, you are creating some kind of effect, whether that's negative or positive. And I'll talk about negative in the end, because you can kind of turn this pyramid down as well. There is no ethics baked into it. This is more a technical thing. So that's what we aspire to. So if we have autonomy, that will enable us to have agency, and they aren't kind of exclusive, mutually exclusive, or they don't kind of make each other, because you can have autonomy without agency, and you can also have agency without autonomy. Having agency without autonomy would mean that you're basically your own made man or woman. You do what you want, but maybe you don't have the actual resources to fulfill your dreams. But you are very maybe entrepreneurial, hard-headed, perhaps. So yeah, but if you do have both of these, or an amount of both of these, then you will get to lifestyle, which means basically the life that you want to lead, the life of your dreams, basically, and the kind of overall freedom to choose what to do, when to do it, who to do it with, and where to do it. That's kind of, I would say, the first cardinal value of psychological and psychospiritual, maturity. To build your own life, the way you want to live. But then, for me, one higher value is also, so when you do have this freedom, what do you do with this freedom? What kind of effect do you want to have on the world, basically? Do you want to build a family, and have them, grow up healthy and able? Or, are you working with people? Are you working with things? What problems are you solving? What kind of value are you creating for the world? So that's meaning for me, and that's like what I think we aspire to once we have these things in place. Now, before we get to that level, there are these bottom. There's this foundation that gets us there. So I will explain the bottom layers as well. So the bottom layer, for me, first is enacted values. So this is already, so another sense, like another way you can understand this kind of pyramid is you're going from kind of unconscious behavior and more like unconsciousness towards more consciousness, level by level. So under agency and autonomy, there's enacted values, what for me, develop and create agency and autonomy. So again, this goes into agency. So this is more about our values and principles, and not just what you believe in, but what you consciously act upon. Then there is implicit beliefs. So All right, let me do the next one too, and then I'll explain. And on the bottom level, there is what I call energetics. Now, simple explanation is that this is the subconscious. So under your conscious, under your basically everyday consciousness, this is where you go when you daydream, when you go into default mode network. Also maybe in your dreams, and that's what we work in therapy, in hypnotherapy, in psychotherapy, and when you work with dreams and symbols, well, basically there are ways to access it. Yeah. So let me write this here. Can be accessed and also triggered, through relationships, through shadows. You might be thinking that, you are this. So you might be thinking that you are basically on this level, but then something happens and immediately you fall one level down. Your shadows come out, your ego takes over and starts, protecting you. This is where we are triggered, where our masks fall, so to speak, and we call it our true self shows. But honestly, I wouldn't say it's the true self. It's just a level of us, and every one of us has it. It's just the question how in touch are we with it, and how much work have we done there? And this is where integration and integrity come in. But there's also the very bottom level, and that's energetics. And what I mean by that is our energetical and emotional state. And this is then informed by our body, our culture, our kind of interpersonal sphere where we are situated in, and our environment as well, in a more physical sense. So, in short, again, this is the bottom level is our state of being in this present moment. But this present moment, all these kind of signals we take, from our body and our environment and whatever situations we are in, this builds up our implicit beliefs, our subconscious. And again, that's what I mean by subconscious, is that there's a level of consciousness, what you think you are, these stories you tell yourself, and your level of kind of awareness of yourself. But then there's the subconscious, which knows 100, maybe 1,000 times more than you do, which remembers, let's say you have a memory, maybe a traumatic memory, you fell down when you were little, you remember, maybe you don't even remember it, but let's say you do, maybe something happened and it kind of shaped you. Now you remember that you fell down and you felt pain, and maybe someone didn't come or someone came, something happened on top of it. But if you go into your subconscious with hypnosis or other techniques, you will see that your body remembers a whole lot more than you do consciously. You remember maybe the day, the smells, the room, I don't know what your grandmother was wearing that day, these little random details. Or if you fell down, how many steps did you fall down? how many steps were there on the stairs. So this is kind of information that your body has, and which is accessible through subconscious, that your conscious mind didn't think was important, but it is accessible and usable. But anyways, that's just subconscious. And what I was saying is that our state, our environment, our body informs our implicit beliefs. It builds them up, yeah, and they, inform our action, which is not always, consciously chosen. And that's why we have psychology, realizing that there are these oftentimes conflicting drives within us. And of course, it's not just our interpersonal space, our culture, and this more abstract thing. It's also the actual environment, the physical environment where we grow up, what we eat, what we put in ourselves, what's all these kind of habitual, actual physical patterns and then behavior that builds us up. In psychology, it's kind of easy to forget that, yes, we do have a psyche, yes, we do have agency and free will and autonomy, and we can choose to do this or choose to do that. But at the same time, we do forget that, our mineral deficiencies can actually trigger depression, which will then enormously inform our action or inaction. So that's why it's kind of the bottom, the absolute base and foundation of this psychological structure. Yeah. So this is how I see psyche, and we go, we go up on this pyramid in one sense, but also we move down because, the better state we can build for ourselves through healthy living and discernment and wise choices, the higher we can go, because the more energy we will have, the more conscious we are in our choices, in our action, the more agency and autonomy we can build, and the more resources we will have to then build the lifestyle we want to have and the impact we want to have on the world, which then gives us meaning and this feeling of meaning in our lives. Also, kind of, I guess what I left out a little bit here on the top layer is that, so agency will give us the ability to choose what I want to do with my life, with my resources, with my free will, or create, or exchange, or build. And another part of, I guess, meaning and agency is that what kind of problems do I want to have in my life? We can't choose to have problems or not have problems, I think, in human life, not for a long time at least. So the choice is rather, what kind of problems do I want to be solving, in my life, in others' lives, in the world. And do I choose to have and work with? So, and also I promised to explain that you can also kind of turn it upside down, the model, in which case, otherwise meaning is kind of the final value, the impact you want to have. But you can also turn it upside down and say that life is meaningless. I will just chase momentary good or pleasure or hedonism, in which case, this state of being, this energetical and even more, I would say, emotional state is the cardinal value, and that's where you get drug addiction. And I'm not saying like this is a conscious choice for many, but in the moment it is. So you can have it upside down as well, and be feeding meaninglessness or meaninglessness, then feeding your, unconscious behavior basically, and being stuck in that loop. So that's also possible. And this I would call psyche, our state of being, our identity, our discernment and action and behavior in the world, or what informs it. But there's also soul, and soul for me is something that, informs many of these. One way to look at it, and I will go deeper into it in the next videos, but just to give you a wider context as well, is that soul is kind of surrounding this whole structure, and it's present in all of the levels, but at the same time it's kind of it's kind of separate, it's kind of distant. So if I take more from the spiritual side, just an image is that, maybe the spirit or kind of the creator or supreme consciousness, or however you view it, or God, is the ocean, then your soul is kind of a lake. Yeah, and what I aim to build here, what is this inner empire, is kind of a aqueduct from this lake. So from your soul, which is again informed by comes from the ocean through all these processes, but to build the aqueduct from the lake to your particular life, your psyche, and to start informing your decisions, your actions, your growth, your creativity. So soul would be surrounding this, and it's present in all levels. In these kind of implicit beliefs, it talks to us through dreams, through our interests as well, what pulls us, and what people kind of pull us. There are many of these patterns I can go into, and I will later, but here I'm just to kind of exemplifying, in our enacted values. I think it's really the core values we have that are important for us. I wouldn't even call it like personality or character. I think it's more spiritual in that sense, like spiritual values of love and truth and beauty, and what really touch us, what really move us, our kind of particular sensitivity in the world. In energetics, that's a bit harder to explain in academic or materialist terms, but I think we do have a energetic layer of being that is tightly tied to our body and our state of being and our emotions and the way we interact with the world. So I think soul also kind of feeds that, and at the same time we feed our soul. So there's the saying that you're not you don't have a soul, you are a soul, you have a body. So you are the soul that has a body. It's a kind of a field, and of course in the higher spheres it has to do with our mission, with our calling, with our creativity. What are we here to build, to channel, to bring into this world? That's and soul kind of, in that sense, both pulls us towards something, towards realizing something, which is twofold. One is, the growth, the process, and then who you are becoming. That's more Jungian, the higher self, realizing the potential of who you could be. as well as the actual effect, the impact you're having on the world, your kind of mission. So as well as soul is, pushing us from behind, in the sense of, putting us in certain situations, attracting us to certain, issues and problems. So there's a lot to pack there, but kind of this psyche is situated in a bigger being, which for me is the soul. But at the same time, this isn't consciousness as such. It isn't spirit. Those are again bigger kind of layers of being. But soul for me is something very intimate. Our like essence of being, our ultimate identity. Maybe not ultimate. There we're going into religion, but in terms of who we are, who am I? This piece of consciousness, this piece of creator, this spark of creativity or intelligence, or all these different angles on our awareness and subjective experience. So yeah, I think that's it for this video. I hope you gained something from this, and do let me know if you learned something, if you have something to add to this, or some criticism, some another angle for this kind of take and model on our psyche and our soul. And of course, if you have questions, also just let me know. I'll try to answer them in the comments, but I'll also be making more videos and explaining it as we go deeper and wider, and more concrete and pragmatic and practical as well. But this is kind of the core of maybe intellectual understanding of what we are building here through experience, through work on ourselves, through therapy, through coaching, and just really looking within and carving ourselves into this body and reality. So I think there's a lot we can do with our consciousness and with different practices to build this up, to build ourselves from the ground up. Yeah, so again, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again. And if you're interested, I do offer one-on-one sessions in both therapy, in coaching, in dragon dreaming and project building. So yeah, glad to have you. Ciao.